Hello friends. It's a warm night here in the attic today, and I'm going to introduce you to a musician that I always liked everything he did. His last album had come out in 2010. Then he disappeared for 13 years. I mean, he didn't release another album. He has interests outside the self-exposure world of the internet. He doesn't have social networks. But the other day I received a message from him inviting me to listen to a new and beautiful collection of 10 songs that he uploaded to Bandcamp, called Beneath to Your Song. But let's start from the beginning. A trombone student in his teenage years, Kurt Weisman formed together with his co-worker at the Vermont record store, Kyle Thomas, now better known as King Tuff, what would be one of the most notable bands of that wave of psychedelic folk that journalists called New Weird America around the year 2004, Feathers. Devendra Banhart by then had created a record label called Noma Song and released the band's first LP. Shortly after the band dissolved, you can see a bit of Feathers' history in a 2012 documentary called Behind the Hill, a tribute to the modern music of New England. It can be found on YouTube, divided into 8 chapters.
Feathers var en flok unge mennesker, der efter at have gravet deres ex-hippie-forældres pladesamlinger igennem, besluttede sig for at danne et band. Set i bagspejlet er det indlysende, at Feathers besad et melodisk udtryk og en næsten popsensibilitet, der gjorde dem mere umiddelbart tilgængelige end de fleste af deres fæller på den her såkaldte scene.
Feathers did some touring on the West Coast with Devendra, and they've done some fairly decent-sized shows in New York and Boston and some of the other East Coast larger cities. But they'd be just as happy to play in front of 50 people downtown at the Tinderbox. It seemed like they had many options to do it, and they've had offers to do it, but they never went any further with that.
We weren't out to make money or sell records. I think that in general, artistic integrity was the main drive for all of us. It was a brief and beautiful experience that had to have, an end that came pretty quickly.
So, then Kurt put out a CDR called Kurt Sings, a weird mix of psychedelic folk and experimental electronica, which is what we're listening to now.
Remember the time when the pillow fell out of the sky, you sang lullaby and the clouds were over me.
After that, he released a 7-inch, More Is More, through a label called Mad Monk Records in 2006. I remember when I found that record I was obsessed with the complexity of the mix of a song called Sid Snooze Room's Blues and Leather Gallery. At the time I was starting to edit videos, and I wrote to Kurt to ask if I could make a video for that song. That's how we got in touch. Let's play that video a bit.
Shooting our children.
In 2007, Kurt released his space folk odyssey, Spiritual Sci-Fi, through Important Records. Let's read the CD label.
Kurt's stunning musicality and absolute compositional prowess makes this an extremely compelling and wonderfully musical experimental pop folk recording.
Betray my heart, betray my soul.
Later in 2009, he released a single called Over the Shadow's Door on his friend Greg Davis' label, Autumn Records. On side A, the song we are hearing him play live right now. On side B, a song by his older brother, Kurt Weisman, who also has a long musical career, and artwork illustrated by their sister, Emma. That same year, Kurt is invited by the band Dirty Projectors to open a concert for them with Jerk at a New York bookstore called Housing Works. By then Kurt was living isolated in rural Vermont, in a small cabin with no electricity, composing, reading and cooking. A filmmaker named Kalim Armstrong captured that time in his life in a short documentary called Field Guide to a New England Life. Let's look at some of that stuff, and if you want to watch the whole video, you can find it on Vimeo.
People ask me a lot how I am comfortable spending so much time alone, and they're imagining how uncomfortable they would be just having to entertain themselves. I think that I've been uncomfortable with people. So there's kind of like a lot of people are impressed that I spend so much time alone and feeling like I'm achieving this intense goal. But in reality, I might be avoiding my fears. Wanting to escape into a world of just songwriting and reading. This house belonged to the family of Louisa May Alcott. But this is just a piece of their house. And it's the kitchen wing. And their house was being turned into apartments. And this part had a bad foundation. And so my landlord took it apart and put it on, he took the walls and placed them on a truck and brought them out here to the woods. Everything's propane except the water gets pumped out of the ground by solar power. The lights are fairly bright and I have candles and things. But it's good to not have electricity because I can better focus on the things that I'm doing, like being alone and reading and playing guitar, and not checking if someone sent me a message on the computer, which is what I would be doing if I had electricity. Sub-zero for a bunch of days in a row, you ideally would want to have a fire going because the pipes could freeze. Well, I couldn't get in or out in a car a lot of the time, but I just ride my bike. This is my bike, which I got from the garbage, and it's awesome. The majority of days I ride to and from work. It's like 7 or 8 miles, so it's not that far, but part of it's really hilly. And part of it's dirt with ice and snow all over it. Chopping some wood up. The hardest part about chopping wood is balancing it. You know what I mean? This is a fun part of chopping wood up. You know? This kind of deal. horses look right in my window all the time and stare right at me. Hi. Well, there's a beautiful river and a path along it through the woods. It's nice to be in a relationship or to live with people. It's good, but I didn't realize until I started living alone that it's an important part of life. I'm gonna live in New York City someday. Yeah. I love going to the city. It's so beautiful and there's so much happening. But I would like to wait until my cat dies.
When you pick up a bottle and you think that it's full.
From the Carminac forest came a beautiful album called Orange.
And it flies up to you when you're climbing the stairs at night.
A review on the Tiny Mixtape site stated,
Across 8 songs and just more than 30 minutes, Weisman channels the spirits of John Fay and Syd Barrett through new age folk songs brimming with sing-along hooks, synths, and finger-picked guitars, all beautifully recorded and mixed by his friend Ben Stamper.
That was in the year 2010. And after that beautiful and promising album, he didn't release anything until a few days ago. Kurt, it's been 13 years since you released Orange. What have you been up to? Why didn't you release music for so long?
Hi Salvador, it's amazing to be talking with you after all these years of appreciating your artwork so much. Yes, it's been 13 years since I made an album like this, and during that time I was not playing guitar or singing or songwriting because I was obsessed with other things at the time. I can think of a few. For the first few years I was using the computer language Pure Data to make automatic yet interactive computer music, and I did some live performances of that, but mostly just got very deep into it. I actually started dreaming in Pure Data. But after that, I just studied trombone a lot. Until I was about 19, I was a very serious trombone student, and then I had stopped completely, and I found myself excited about that again, particularly orchestral trombone. So for a number of years, I was just practicing trombone a lot, and I played in a local community orchestra. I got to play great trombone music like Stravinsky and Shostakovich and Bruckner and all sorts of stuff like that, and that was wonderful. But the thing that I spent the most time on, mostly over the last maybe 8 years, was learning to play the cornetto, which is an instrument which is used for playing music of the 16th and 17th century. A lot of it's Italian music, but music from all over Europe. And that music has own music theory, it has its own performance practice, it has its own notational systems. And if you're someone like me who gets very obsessed with researching things, you could spend many lifetimes mastering the cornetto. And I played some with amateurs, but I also did a little bit of professional work with that, but it's a very high bar. So yeah, that's what I've been up to. And then just about a year ago, I got excited about writing a song and playing guitar, and that's when I wrote the first song on Be Nice to Your Song, and recorded it at home.
On your Bandcamp it says you're in Montague, Massachusetts. Have you left Vermont? What's Montague like?
Yes, I live in a village called Great Falls. Some people call it Turner's Falls, and it's inside Montague. And it is, I think it was established in the late 1800s as a factory town to harness the hydropower here. It's only about 40 minutes south of Vermont, where I used to live, and I still work there. I work at a sawmill in the forest. But right now I live in this apartment building. It's just a small building with 3 apartments. I live on the top floor here, and this is where I make my music.
How long have you been writing the songs for Be Nice to Your Song?
Yeah, it took me about a year to make the record. I think I would just write a song and then record it, and then each one took me about a month, I think, and then I would completely forget about it and start a new one. And I recorded them here. I'll bring the camera in the studio now. So here's a studio kind of workshop area. Here are my Renaissance instruments. There's a Renaissance trombone and some cornetos here. These are the synths I use on the record. The record has this RBAX, this DX7, this Alpha Juno 2, and actually there's a stylophone on there a little bit. I use this as a preamp for my guitar, this old PA, 2 PA head, for my electric guitar mostly. I like to do all my effects outside of the box. So there's this stereo flanger is on the album a lot. And so is this chorus here. That's the chorus I use. What I record with, usually there's a computer down here, but I use this Warm Audio 73 preamp type thing. I like the preamps fine and the Mackie thing for clean stuff. And for microphones, I'm mostly using this Electro Voice 635A Dynamic Omni. That's all the vocals are that. But I have a cheap Audio Technica condenser microphone that I use as well.
Have you thought about playing in public again? Do you plan to return to recording and releasing albums more frequently?
Yes, I've already started a new album, and I'm going to make sure this time that I remember how to play the songs after I record them. Because the last record, every song's in a different tuning, and they're kind of hard to reverse engineer, and I don't know how to play them. But I'm going to make sure this time that I can do that. Because I do miss that, and I think it would be fun. Particularly, I'd like to collaborate with some friends, I think, in a live performance.
Well, Kurt, that sounds very promising. People, Kurt's latest album, Be Nice to Your Song, can be heard on his Bandcamp while you drink a cup of tea at midnight. Who is the guy in the album cover photo? Can you introduce it to us?
Yep, here she is. Squiggy. That's Squiggy. She's cute.
Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Well, I hope you liked this episode. See you soon. Bye-bye.